He was a decorated military colonel, a pilot who flew the Prime Minister of Canada, a man trusted with some of the nation's highest secrets. But behind the uniform and the medals was something horrifying. A predator who broke into homes, terrorized women, and committed unspeakable crimes. And when police finally brought him in for questioning, they had no idea they were about to witness one of the most masterful interrogations ever recorded. This is the story of Colonel Russell Williams, and the detective who broke him in less than 4 hours. February 7th, 2010. Ontario Provincial Police Headquarters in Smiths Falls, Ontario, Canada. A man walks into an interrogation room wearing a dark jacket and khaki pants. He's calm, confident, even friendly. His name is Russell Williams, and he's a colonel in the Canadian Forces. He commands Canada's largest military airbase. He's responsible for billions of dollars in equipment and thousands of personnel. He's flown dignitaries, including the Queen of England and the Prime Minister. He's someone people respect, someone people look up to. But in a few hours, this man will confess to 2 murders, multiple sexual assaults, and dozens of break-ins. And it will all happen because of one detective's brilliant strategy. Before we get into the interrogation, you need to understand who Russell Williams was. Born in 1963, Williams had what appeared to be a distinguished military career. He joined the Canadian Forces in 1987 and quickly rose through the ranks. He became a pilot, flying transport aircraft and eventually commanding VIP flights. In 2009, he was promoted to colonel and given command of Canadian Forces Base Trenton, one of the largest and most important military installations in Canada. By all accounts, he was professional, disciplined, and respected. He was married. He owned a home in a quiet neighborhood. He seemed like the model officer and citizen.
As you can see here, everything in this room is videotaped and audio taped.
Check.
You ever been interviewed by the police in a room like this before?
I have never been interviewed like this.
Oh, no? Okay.
No.
Let's get this set up here.
I guess the closest interview by NIS for top secret clearance.
Oh, yeah? All right. Well, again, Russell, I appreciate coming in an investigation like this. I mean, I'm sure you can appreciate it's been big news, especially down Belleville way. And, you know, obviously our approach to cases like this is that we don't give up on somebody being alive until we get evidence that they're not. So because of that, we're treating Jessica's case as an emergent situation, obviously. Yeah. So we're fast-forwarding things that we might normally take our time with, and that's why we're here on a Sunday afternoon.
Sure.
So again, I appreciate it.
Okay.
We're going to do a pretty thorough interview today. Okay. And the reason for that is because the last thing we want is to be calling people back again and again and again. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over a number of things, and I'm going to explain what all those are to you. Okay. I'm a big coffee guy. I don't know if you're a coffee guy or not, but I didn't want to drink in front of you, so.
No, I appreciate that.
All right, go ahead.
I could definitely. Are they black?
Yeah, they're just black with sugar.
Definitely. I just started my gum, so I probably haven't a little bit.
Started your what, sorry?
Gum. Just
oh, okay.
First piece of gum.
Well, there's napkins there if you want to toss it or whatever.
I appreciate that.
All right, and again, like I said.
But starting in 2007, something changed. Or perhaps something that had always been there finally emerged. Williams began breaking into homes in his neighborhood. At first, it was just burglaries. He would enter houses when no one was home, go through belongings, and steal items. But the items he stole were unusual. Women's underwear, bras, lingerie. He would take these items home and keep them as trophies. Over time, the break-ins escalated. He started taking photographs of himself wearing the stolen underwear. He would pose in the homes he had broken into, in the bedrooms of the women whose items he had stolen. Then the break-ins became more dangerous. Williams began targeting homes where women were present. He would break in at night while they were sleeping. He would watch them. In some cases, he would assault them while they slept. His crimes were becoming bolder, more violent, more calculated. He was keeping detailed records, photographs, videos. He was documenting everything, and he was getting away with it. No one suspected the respectable military colonel living in their neighborhood. In September 2009, Williams committed his first known sexual assault. He broke into a woman's home, tied her up, and assaulted her for hours. He photographed and videotaped the entire attack. A few weeks later, he did it again to another woman. Both victims were traumatized but survived. Police began investigating, but they had few leads. The attacker wore gloves, was careful about evidence, and seemed to know how to avoid detection. The cases went cold. Then in November 2009, Marie-France Comeau, a 38-year-old corporal in the Canadian Forces, was found dead in her home. She had been sexually assaulted and suffocated. The crime scene was horrific. Police found evidence of a prolonged attack. The killer had spent hours with her, assaulting her, photographing her, and ultimately killing her. But once again, there were few clues. The killer had been careful. The community was terrified. A killer was targeting women, and no one knew who it was. Then in January 2010, another woman disappeared. Jessica Lloyd, 27 years old, vanished from her home in Belleville, Ontario. Her family reported her missing. Police found signs of a break-in at her house. Tire tracks were found in her driveway, left by someone who had driven onto her property. Police began going door to door in the area, looking for vehicles that matched the tire tracks. They were looking for any lead, any connection, anything that might help them find Jessica. One of the homes they visited was owned by Russell Williams and his wife. Williams was cooperative. He let police photograph his SUV tires. He answered their questions. He seemed like just another concerned neighbor. But Detective Sergeant Jim Smyth, the lead investigator, noticed something. Williams seemed too calm, too controlled. His answers were careful, measured, and the tire tracks on his vehicle were very similar to the ones found at Jessica's house. Smyth made a decision. He asked Williams if he would come to the police station to answer some more questions, just to eliminate him as a suspect. Williams agreed. He had no idea what was about to happen. February 7th, 2010. Russell Williams arrives at the Ontario Provincial Police Headquarters. He's dressed casually, not in uniform. He's led to an interview room, a small room with a table, a few chairs, and a camera recording everything. Detective Jim Smyth enters and sits down across from Williams. What happens over the next 3 hours and 56 minutes is considered one of the greatest interrogations in criminal history. And it all starts with a simple conversation. Smyth begins by thanking Williams for coming in. He's friendly, professional, respectful. He explains that they're investigating Jessica Lloyd's disappearance, and they're talking to everyone in the area. Williams nods. He seems relaxed. Smyth asks general questions. Where were you on this date? What time did you get home? Do you remember seeing anything unusual? Williams answers calmly. He's helpful. He's cooperative. But Smyth is watching him carefully. He's looking for tells, for signs, for anything that might indicate Williams is more than just a witness. Then Smyth starts to shift the conversation. He mentions the tire tracks. He explains that they're trying to match vehicles to the tracks found at Jessica's home. Williams nods. He offers that he drives an SUV, which Smyth already knows. Smyth shows Williams a map of the area. He asks Williams to mark where he drove that night. Williams complies. He's still calm, still cooperative. But Smyth is building something. He's laying groundwork. He's creating a foundation of facts that Williams has agreed to, facts that Williams cannot later deny. After about 30 minutes, Smyth's tone begins to change subtly. He's still friendly, still professional, but there's a shift. He starts talking about evidence. He mentions that they have forensic experts analyzing the tire tracks. He mentions that they have ways of matching footprints, of identifying fibers, of connecting people to crime scenes. Williams shifts slightly in his chair. It's a small movement, barely noticeable, but Smyth sees it. Williams is starting to realize this isn't just a routine interview. Smyth then does something brilliant. He starts talking about how investigations work. He explains that when police have evidence, they need to eliminate innocent people so they can focus on the guilty. He tells Williams that he's sure Williams had nothing to do with Jessica's disappearance, but they need to clear him so they can move on. It's a technique called minimization. Smyth is giving Williams a way to explain things, a way to rationalize confessing. He's planting the idea that cooperation will make everything easier. Then Smyth drops the bomb. He tells Williams that they have his tire tracks at Jessica's house. Not similar tracks. His tracks. He tells Williams that they have his boot prints at the scene. He tells Williams that they have forensic evidence connecting him to the crime. And he says it matter-of-factly, as if it's simply an established fact. Williams's demeanor changes immediately. His face remains neutral, but his body language shifts. He crosses his arms. He looks down. He stops making eye contact. Smyth sees all of this.
Some meetings over in Gatineau for one of the, it's actually for the C-17 acquisition. I was project director when I was here in Ottawa for that, so just some follow-up stuff for that.
Okay.
So I had been here at some point in that week. Again, I can't remember how the days all fell together, but I seem to remember that I got this word shortly after having come back from Ottawa. It seems to me it was the same week.
Williams tries to maintain his composure. He suggests that maybe he drove by the area that day. Maybe that's how his tire tracks got there. Smyth shakes his head. He explains that the tracks are in Jessica's driveway on her property. There's no innocent explanation for that. Williams goes quiet. For several minutes, he doesn't speak. He's processing. He's calculating. He's trying to figure out how much they know, what evidence they have, whether he can still talk his way out of this. Smyth lets the silence hang. He doesn't rush. He doesn't feel pressure. He just sits there, waiting, letting Williams think. This is another brilliant technique. Guilty people hate silence. They want to fill it, to explain, to justify. And eventually, Williams starts talking again. But now his answers are different. He's more evasive. He's using phrases like, "I don't recall," and "I don't think so," instead of clear denials. Smyth knows he's getting close. Then Smyth changes tactics again. He starts talking about Jessica. He describes her as a real person, a daughter, someone with family and friends who are desperate to find her. He tells Williams that if something happened, if there was an accident, if things got out of control, now is the time to explain. He's offering Williams a way to confess without admitting premeditation. He's making it psychologically easier to admit the crime. Williams listens, but doesn't respond. He's still fighting it, still trying to hold on. Smyth then delivers another blow. He tells Williams that they found Jessica's body. He tells Williams that they found her in a location connected to him. Williams's face pales slightly. He uncrosses his arms and puts his hands on the table. He's no longer projecting confidence. He's trapped, and he knows it. Smyth continues. He explains that with physical evidence and the body, they can prove Williams was involved. The only question now is why. Was it intentional? Was it something that spiraled out of control? Williams needs to tell his side of the story. Williams is silent for a long time. Minutes pass. The room is completely quiet except for the sound of breathing and the hum of the recording equipment. Williams is thinking. He's weighing his options. He's realizing that denial is no longer viable. And Smyth just waits. Patient. Calm. Giving Williams the space to make the decision. And then Williams speaks. He asks what happens to his wife. He asks about his career. He asks practical questions about what will happen next. These aren't the questions of an innocent man. These are the questions of someone who has accepted that it's over. Smyth answers honestly. He tells Williams that his wife will be informed, that his career is finished, that his life as he knew it is over. But he also tells Williams that the only control he has left is how he handles this moment. He can cooperate, provide answers, give closure to the families. Or he can make it harder on everyone. Williams nods slowly. And then, after 3 hours of careful, strategic questioning, Russell Williams begins to confess. He starts with Jessica Lloyd. He admits to breaking into her home. He admits to abducting her. He admits to taking her to his cottage. He admits to assaulting her. And he admits to killing her. His voice is quiet, measured, almost emotionless. He's describing horrific acts as if he's giving a military briefing. Detached, clinical, disturbing. But Smyth doesn't stop there. He asks about other crimes. Were there other victims? Williams hesitates, then admits to breaking into homes. Smyth asks how many. Williams says dozens. Smyth asks about assaults. Williams admits to 2 sexual assaults before Jessica. Smyth asks about Marie-France Comeau. Williams goes quiet again. This is harder for him to admit. Marie-France was a fellow service member, someone in his command. But eventually he admits it. He admits to breaking into her home. He admits to assaulting her. He admits to killing her. The confession continues for over an hour. Williams provides details about each crime. He tells Smyth where evidence is located. He draws maps to show where Jessica's body is hidden. He explains his methods, his patterns, his escalation. He's cooperating fully now, not because he wants to, but because he's accepted that there's no other option. Detective Smyth has completely dismantled him. But here's what makes this interrogation truly remarkable. Smyth did all of this without yelling, without threatening, without any aggressive tactics. He was calm, patient, and strategic. He built rapport. He presented evidence carefully. He gave Williams psychological space to rationalize confessing. He appealed to Williams's need for control by explaining that cooperation was the only thing Williams could still control. It was a masterclass in interrogation technique. After the confession, Williams was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 sexual assaults, and multiple break-ins. Police searched his home and found thousands of photographs documenting his crimes. Hundreds of pieces of stolen underwear cataloged and stored. Videos of his assaults. Detailed records of his break-ins. The evidence was overwhelming. In October 2010, Russell Williams pleaded guilty to all charges. He was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. His military rank was stripped. His medals were returned. His name was erased from military records. The man who once commanded a base and flew prime ministers now sits in a maximum security prison where he will remain for the rest of his life. The interrogation of Russell Williams is studied by law enforcement agencies around the world. Detective Jim Smyth's approach is taught in police academies as an example of how to effectively extract a confession. The key elements were patience, strategy, presenting evidence methodically, and giving the suspect a psychological framework to admit guilt. Smyth never lost his temper. He never showed emotion. He stayed professional throughout. And it worked. But this case is also a reminder of something deeply disturbing. Russell Williams was a respected member of society. He had authority, responsibility, and trust. People looked up to him. And all the while, he was living a double life. He was a predator hiding behind a uniform and a rank. His crimes devastated multiple families and shattered the sense of safety in his community. 2 women lost their lives. Multiple others were traumatized. All because one man believed he could do whatever he wanted and never face consequences. Detective Jim Smyth gave those victims justice. Through skill, patience, and determination, he got Williams to confess to everything. He gave the families answers. He ensured that Williams would never hurt anyone again. And he showed the world that no matter who you are, no matter what position you hold, the truth will eventually come out. Russell Williams thought he was untouchable. He thought he was smarter than everyone. But in that interrogation room, facing a detective who knew exactly what he was doing, Williams's facade crumbled, and justice was served. If you want to see more interrogation breakdowns like this, where we analyze the techniques that get criminals to confess, subscribe to this channel. We break down the psychology, the strategies, and the moments that reveal the truth. What did you think of Detective Smyth's approach? Could you see the moments where Williams started to break? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
The 23rd of November.
Okay.
23rd being the Monday, 24th being the Tuesday.
Okay.
What they've told us is that, and I want to make sure I get this right, is that on the 23rd, your swipe card was being used at the base. Okay.
Okay.
On Tuesday 24th, there was no use of your swipe card.
Okay.
And then on the following days, the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there was what appeared to be average activity of your
Okay.
swipe card in the base. Does that make sense to you?
It does. That says that I was in Ottawa on the Tuesday.
Okay. Do you remember where in Ottawa you were?
Yeah, I was in Gatineau with, as I said, meeting about the C-17.
Okay. Now, again, I want to be fair to you here. We're going back 2 months.
Yeah.
Are you sure that would have been the day you were in Ottawa?
Well, only because I wasn't at the base.
Okay.
So I can't remember, honestly, that that's the day I had the meeting in Ottawa, but if I wasn't at the base, it was because I was here.
Okay. Now, if that is the day you had a meeting in Ottawa, do you remember being at the base on the Monday, the 23rd, and swiping your card in and out? Do you remember what you would have done that evening to get to Ottawa for that meeting? Like, would it be...
I drove to Ottawa in the morning of the day of my meeting, so if it was the Tuesday, then I would have left Tweed. It was a very foggy morning.
Okay.
That morning. And I drove in that morning.
Okay.
So I would not have been at the base the day I was in Ottawa, because the meeting started at 8:30 or something.
Okay, so you leave the base, you would have went home to your residence in Tweed,
Yep.
and then you left Tweed in the morning and drove up to your meeting in Ottawa.
Yep.
Okay. You leave the meeting in Ottawa is a daytime meeting, evening meeting, or do you remember?
Yeah, it was a daytime meeting, finished, I don't know, mid-afternoon or so.
Okay.
We had lunch and then finished. I think my wife and I had dinner because she was here for work, and then I headed back.
Okay. Well, these are the kind of things that I'm trying to draw out here. That's helpful to us. Do you remember where you had dinner?
Well, I don't remember exactly the restaurant, but it was in Westboro because that's where our house was being built at the time. So we had dinner, in a restaurant that we would expect to be able to frequent once the house was finished.
Okay. Remember how you paid?
One of us would have paid by MasterCard. Yeah.
Okay. Are you sure about that, or?
Pretty sure. That's normally how we
Okay.
we pay for meals.
All right.
Can't remember if it was me or my wife that paid, but one of us.
Okay. And do you remember which restaurant it was again?
No.
Okay. All right. And you see where I'm getting at, right? I mean, that can be very helpful for us because if we can track that issue, right? We can put somebody paying for a meal at a location.
Well, I was meeting with 15 people or so that day. So.
Okay. And what time did the meeting end?
I would say between 3 and 4.
Okay. And are you sure that that's the same day you went out with your wife?
Well, I think so. Yeah, because she was here, and I think that was the day we went to this restaurant in Westboro, yes.
Okay. You finished dinner, and do you remember what you did that evening?
I would have driven back to Tweed.
Okay. And you would have... Now, again, I know we're talking 2 months ago here, but do you remember specifically having dinner and then driving back to Tweed, or do you remember... are you just guessing here?
No, I'm not really guessing. I mean, I believe that this night at this restaurant was following the meetings in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
And I, kissed my wife goodbye and headed back to Tweed to go to work the next day.
Okay. All right. The tires that you have on your truck, right? The reason I asked you about that is there any time, I mean, you recall where you were stopped by the officers there?
Yes.
Okay. Did they explain to you what the significance of
that
that
was
location?
her house.
That was her house.
Yeah.
Okay. So you remember that location?
Yep.
Do you remember what the crossroad was, or?
I don't think there was a crossroad. It's sort of just on the south end of 37.
Okay. When you get stopped at that location, has there been a time in the recent 1 or 2 weeks that your vehicle has left that road for any reason whatsoever? Have you driven into a field with your vehicle at all? For any reason you can think of?
No.
Okay. Because I want you to rack your brain here. This is important. So, is there anything you can remember doing that would have caused you to drive off the road at that section of roadway?
No, that's my that's the early part of the highway, and just head north. It's about 30 minutes from there to, probably 20 from there to my house.
Okay. Would it surprise you to know that when the CSI officers were looking